Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're just going to give it a few more minutes to let everyone join, and we'll get started in just a few. Good evening and welcome, everybody. My name is Lauren Bryant, and I'm your host tonight for the third Mother's Rest meeting at Four Corners. Before we jump into the presentation, I just want to go over a few how-tos and what to expect. Wanted to let everybody know that interpretation was not requested for this meeting tonight, however, for future meetings, please know that we're eager to hear all voices, and we're able to offer translations and interpretation request free of charge for additional languages. Please reach out to me for any other information on language interpretation if need be for future meetings. Also want to make sure that you know that tonight's meeting is being recorded and will be available on the project website within about a week. In case you didn't know about the project website, we'll drop a link in the chat for you. Next slide, please. I will also want to make sure that you know, sorry, just jumping to the next slide there. We want to make sure that this conversation is comfortable for everybody. And so just a few reminders, please be respectful and mindful of other people's time and make sure everyone has the opportunity to participate. If you've submitted a question, please make sure you let others have an opportunity before submitting another one. And you can always set up additional conversations with me or contact me through email if you want to talk outside of the meeting. Next slide, please. Quick overview of, for those of you who may not be as familiar with Zoom, I know we've all been living in this world for a little while now. If you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to add them to the chat, which is the text bubble icon at the bottom of your screen. You can also raise your hand virtually by clicking on the reactions button at the bottom of the screen. Hopefully that takes care of all of the housekeeping information. So we'll jump over to the agenda. Now onto the project. We know it's a hard to take time out for community meetings and that everyone is feeling a bit of meeting and Zoom fatigue. So we really appreciate you guys taking the time, especially this time of year. It's very busy. First tonight, we're going to introduce the design team. We're going to do a quick project overview and a quick review from the second meeting, and then we'll go into our presentation tonight. After that, we'll have time for a discussion at the end of the presentation. So for those who may have joined a little late, my name is Lauren Bryant, and I'm the project manager for Boston Parks for this exciting project renovation. Christine Brandeo, our outreach coordinator, is unable to join us tonight, but her contact information is on the slide, and she's a great resource for general park questions and for friends groups. Our design team for this project is DMLA, and Deb Myers will be presenting for the design team for us tonight, and I can let her introduce herself at the beginning of her presentation. Next slide, please. So we kicked the project off with the first community meeting on Zoom in mid-September, and then we had a pop-up in the park on September 23rd. We also had a second community meeting in mid-October. At that meeting, we shared several design ideas and heard a lot from the community about the desire to connect the upper and the lower terraces of the park. The design team and I talked about a couple of options moving forward. One was to do a survey to get more community feedback, and the other was to do an additional meeting. And we've decided to actually do both of those things. So we're doing an additional community meeting tonight. So then we'll have a fourth community meeting in the winter after we've been able to gather feedback tonight and do a survey after this meeting. We'll also be sharing a presentation tonight, both on the presentation tonight, both on the project website and also with that survey to get wider input. And then once we've done that, that's when we can really start to come together with a design that we'll show you guys at that 4th community meeting. After that 4th community meeting, we'll finalize the design and we'll plan to bid the project this winter and start construction late spring, with park reopening in the spring of 2023. And then, just as a reminder, the estimated construction cost of the park is $1.4 million. So that being said, I'm going to do a quick recap of where we were at our last meeting in regards to budget and the design. So the original scope of this project, for those of you who've been through these meetings with us, was to renovate the upper terrace and the lower terrace, but to keep the stairs in place between the 2 terraces. So we heard from community members that connecting the 2 terraces accessibly was something they were really interested in exploring, and we were too. To see if we could make that happen. We took a first pass at that before our 2nd meeting and presented several concepts that showed a renovated upper and lower terrace, as was the original scope. But we also showed a version that introduced ramps. And I know that there were some concerns from the community about both of those designs, about things they liked, things they didn't like. And I know that Deb's going to go into a bit more detail on these concepts in a bit when she does a review. But I just wanted to talk through a little bit about what we heard and what we're looking for tonight. So as we discussed, the original scope of the project and the budget was aligned with that original scope. And we talked about the impacts that the ramps would have on the park, both from a design perspective and a cost standpoint. Tonight, what I really want to focus on is the design standpoint and not focus on the cost point of that. We know that ramps are more expensive, but what we want to understand from the community is how the ramps and the designs affect the park. There are pluses and minuses to both of these designs that Deb will get into. And what we want to focus on is how the design impacts the park, how you feel about the park, how it makes the park feel in the community. And that's what we want to get your feedback on. So once we leave here and we get the feedback from you guys, and then once we get the feedback from the survey, we'll take that all in, and the Parks Department will then make a decision about how to move forward with the park. But what we want to understand for both of the concepts that we're going to present tonight is making sure that whichever concept we go with, they both would fit the needs of the neighborhood. And so that's one of the things I really want us to focus on tonight. Next slide. And I think with that, and I can get into it, answer more questions later too, if you guys want to, but I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Deb, and she's going to go into more detail about what we heard at the last meetings and what all we listened to and heard from your feedback, and how we're trying to incorporate that into this next set of designs we're showing you tonight.
Thank you, Lauren. And I appreciate that, that lead in and reminder. And so I'm glad everybody that's on the meeting tonight that you've shown up. We appreciate your time. I know it's a very busy time of year, so I'm so glad you're here. So the next, so we presented 3 different plans at the last meeting, and I'm going to recap those 3 plans, not that we're repeating the plans, but so that we can go over what I took away, what my team took away, and what we heard, and then questions and comments. And this talks to our process, because we hope we took your feedback, really listened, and then made changes where we could. So option 1, which is shown in the corner of this slide, had an enlarged terrace along Washington Street, some stadium seats down to a lawn, existing stairs to mostly remain, and then really an enhanced or enlarged play area with water play. So some of the positives were people really liked that we included telescopes, liked that we had different playgrounds for different ages, chess and checker tables. We talked about painting the stairs to really create something visual and really to create a nice graphic link. A lot of people use these stairs every time I go out. There's people using them to get up to the bus stop, but also to exercise. So we certainly, want to repair them, make them safe. And then people also liked hill play. They liked that we were leaving the slope relatively untouched, but they also liked that we included this idea of having some of the rubber surface, having the playground move up the slope with the play. So questions that were raised. There was a lot of questions about, is there a vending kiosk? Is there an opportunity for that? Is there an opportunity for Snap Chef to have tables and chairs to do events? So Lauren did not mention it, but there's a meeting that is in progress to being set up. Can flowering plants be added?
Just to jump in on that point. So I met internally with our vending team, and they're happy to talk to both Main Streets and Snap Chef. And we've had some emails back and forth, but haven't been able to set that meeting up yet. But we're hoping to do that in the near future. But one of the things that we've talked about with Deb is, regardless of whether it's Snap Chef, regardless of whether it's just events that are put on by Main Streets, by the Main Street group, we want to make sure that the plaza is designed in a way that it can accommodate whatever that future need or desire is.
Thanks, Lauren. So back to flowering plants. We talked about the fact that we could add flowering trees, maybe some flowering shrubs, but flower beds are difficult for the staff or the Parks Department to maintain. Is the current dead space in the park being used? And the dead space being a little bit of the lawn and the slope. Game tables to be considered, breaking stairs for resting spots, for landings, and can we have rock climbing equipment? So that's a little bit of the feedback for just that first option. The second option, which again had an expanded plaza at the top, ramping down to a secondary terrace, a larger, again, all the options had larger play areas, some teen space, and then with and without this dog park portion. So the positives, everyone that really was advocating for the dog park was really pleased to see this on this plan. In later slides, we will show you comparisons to other dog parks mentioned, just for everyone to get a real sense of the scale of a Mother's Rest versus some other dog parks farther afield. The upper terrace designed is open to maximize views. So we took that to heart as a real positive from this plan. Questions and comments, bring a loop path for tricycles. Love that idea. Yoga lawn appeared really small, which was true. So again, we took that is a real priority to try to work into the future plans. Positive, negative is about the dog park space being used. Not a lot of slope activity on this plan. No adult exercise equipment, which was also seen as something that was critically important to a plan moving forward. And then comments about how the upper terrace had been used, which were really helpful. The upper plaza has been used for yoga. It's been an area for parents of the Washington Street neighborhood to really, not go all the way down to the playground, but to bring equipment, like kids run around. And then just a general reiteration of how important a larger play area is for children. The third option, which was our option that introduced the accessible connection with a large ramp between Washington and Claiborne Street. And this created a really great discussion about, what can the park provide this connection? So a lot of positive feedback on the fact that this could be a really wonderful opportunity for this project to create. And then there was a lot of comments about the form of the ramp. And so we've looked at that in some plans that you'll see in a little bit. Comments and questions, we really like the swings at Lawn on D. We agree, those are really fun. It's important that the park have a large playground. Again, this has been a constant theme of the three plans from the last meeting. Larger play area, water play, super important. Incorporating existing community elements, which will make the park welcoming to the community. Example being Snack Chef. We love that they're such an active member of the community, and we hope the park really engages them, and also anyone that really wants to help activate the park. Feels like an adult park and not a place for kids. I thought that was a great comment. They're all great comments. They're young families and young babies in the community. Again, the play space is really important to this community park. Questions about, is there another accessible route? Often sometimes neighborhoods have a little circuitous path around, but we really looked, and it's quite far to go on public streets. There's nothing direct. The plan breaks up the current uses of the park. Another great comment, ramp seems cumbersome, will people really use it? So those are great. Again, all feedback is good feedback. And then it led us into creating really two plans that really look to what Lauren was mentioning of design ideas. So I would really like, as I present these two options, for you to think not about the budget, not even necessarily like, are there telescopes or not? Because that specifically is something that could be added to both plans, but really think about the look and feel of the park. And certainly we'll open it up to questions. Lauren, do you think we should open it up to questions after each option like we did last time?
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, great. Before I go into the options, to talk about the scale of the park, and in Garvey Park, which is a beautiful park that was recently redone, it's been brought up as an example quite a bit. So I wanted to share this slide that shows the plan for Garvey Park at the same scale as the plan for Mother's Rest. So Mother's Rest is about 1.5 or 1.2 acres compared to the Garvey Park, which has 5 acres of parkland and then some extra land for DCR. So you can see that, you can just see the difference in the scale. That doesn't affect our design work. I just, sometimes it's helpful to see how things are different sizes. So first, to review briefly the program elements that are on the existing site now. We have an open lawn that's green space at about 4,500 square feet. We have seating spread out throughout the park. We have plaza space, both at the upper terrace and the lower terrace, and the stairs and the existing ramp. We created some sections, not to remind you, everybody knows that there's quite a slope, but I think they'll be helpful as we look at the design alternatives to really see how the options impact the slope and change the slope, both to create a sense of space and connectivity within the two parks. So on the upper slide is a cut through more of the green slope. So we have an upper terrace at Washington Street, a green space that slopes, more seating, and then a very long slope to more seating at the bottom, great play area and green space. And then similarly, just about 30 feet over, we cut another section line that shows the plaza space. Again, another small slope, larger terrace with that overlook opportunity. And then down to our large bank of stairs, down to the play area, to the stairs. So option 1A is a version of some of the options that we showed, but with improvements based on some of the comments that we heard. Again, play area really enhanced. We have slope play. We've added a ramp to get up to the slope play, designated space for water play, teen space with ping pong or another element that we might include. And then we show an example of this lawn space with a pathway. Could be for little kids, it could be for walkers, and just the amount of regular size yoga mats that you could place in this space. The upper terrace, again, we flipped the plaza to be in more direct relationship to Snap Chef. There's, just so that it's clear, there's a little spot here where the stairs come down, tables and chairs, telescopes, a spot for some adult exercise, play, stadium seating, ramp access down to another terrace lawn that could be, again, for kid play, it could be for exercise groups, it could be for reading a book, or performance space. So we're really trying to create enough framework so that lots of different activities and events can happen. Option 1B would be to reduce the lawn and add a partial 1,700 dog park with a separate fence around it. To talk a little bit about square feet of dog parks, the small circle that gives a buffer with the neighbors is 1,750 square feet. If we took the whole oval, that would be 3,500 feet. And then comparable dog parks, the dog park at Ronan Park and the dog park at Garvey Park are both larger. And these show the areas of the park that this would take up if we wanted to do a 6,400 square foot dog park and really, an 8,460 square foot dog park at Garvey Park. It would take up quite a bit. And then of course, Peters Park is larger almost than half of our existing park. I don't show those to sort of say we can't have a dog park. I really just, again, relative scale of places in relationship to what we can really do on the site. So here is the sections updated for the proposal for 1A and really similar to 1B as well. So really enlarged plaza space, we have some terracing of the existing grade. You can see maybe very faintly these existing grade lines where we're cutting into the slope for some of these new amenity spaces. The existing stairs remain, the play area is enlarged and enhanced, especially to include the slope play here with stairs down as we show now, additional seating and other activities. So I will go back to.
I'm going to jump in for just a second, Deb.
Yeah.
Sorry. One of the things I just want to say is there's a lot of information here, just like there was last time. And it is a little hard to keep it, to keep all of them straight because the sections, they're all big slope. It's a lot of grade change. It's a lot to try to explain in what we're showing. So we'll go through each of them and get comments. But one of the things at the end that Deb has done, which is really helpful, is she has all three of them, the existing and these two options to compare side by side in a slide. And so that really will help us understand kind of what each of the changes means spatially in the park. So just want to throw that out there that will be coming too as we talk about these options.
Yeah, thank you for that, Lauren. And I did go through it very fast. So if there's questions about anything I described or that you want more detail in, please let me know.
So this is the option of keeping the stairs and the infrastructure, but improving the upper and lower terraces. And Jen, to answer the question, 1A and 1B are two versions of the first option, and then there is a second option, which is the sloped ramp option. So we want to make sure that we get everybody's feedback on both of these, because then we'll also get that feedback from people in surveys form, and then we'll come back to the community with either an option 1 or option 2. So we do want your feedback on 1A and 1B to see if we go with keeping the stairs and not adding in ramps, what we like about this plan, what we think we would want to adjust about this plan. And if people want to raise their hand, Steve, are people able to unmute themselves if they have a question or comment?
If they raise their hand, I should be able to unmute them.
Okay. Does anybody have any thoughts on these? I see Teresa has her hand raised.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Teresa.
It looks like we covered a lot of what we discussed, and I like the fact of that. And
Good. We definitely tried to incorporate everything we heard, for sure.
which is really good. So my only other concern, which was the last time, the ramp, how much money will that eat up? That's my major concern. But if we could get everything, then I would be happy, because that covered everything that we discussed.
So we'll look at the ramp option, and the ramp option is more expensive than this one. But that's why we want to understand really what you guys like about both of them, so that as we move forward, we can make that decision. But we want to make sure that we know with each of these options what the right layout of the park is, whether we have the ramp or not, right? Because the funding aside, we want to make sure that the design works too. There's a question in the chat that says, do we need to give feedback tonight, or can we take this information back to our neighborhood? So yeah, we'll post this and we'll have a survey. So anybody that wants to give feedback tonight can, and anybody that wants to give it later as part of the survey, that's completely fine too. Marilyn has her hand raised. Steve, could we unmute her, please?
Hi. So my
Marilyn.
question, excuse me, has to do with the dog park. Are there certain sizes for the size or the weight of the dog for dog parks?
So a lot of times what we do is we'll do a small dog park and a large dog park. And so they're not necessarily set square footages, but this would be a really, really small area. And I think that's where, Deb, I don't know if we can go back to the one that has all of the square footages on it. So the Ronan Dog Park and the Garvey Dog Park both have within that square footage a small area and a large area that make those up. So if we wanted to put something here, the park is really not big enough for a large dog park like Garvey,
Right.
unless we don't want to have the playground, right? Unless we really want to change that focus and put something completely different. But if a dog area is important to people, we could put a really small one in, but it really would be for small dogs.
Right. So I guess that's where I was, that's what I was getting at, that this would be more or less a dog park for dogs probably under 30 pounds, just a small dog park, but not for the big dogs. If, the community decided
right.
that. Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Perfect. Good. Oh, for sure.
Thank you, Marilyn.
And Iris, yes, there is a way to see the plan side by side. We're going to do that once we show the second option. So then that way we can look at both options together. And are there thoughts? I'm curious in terms of people's take on the layout of the plaza, the possible connection with Snap Chef, how the plaza was shifted, the hillside play. How do people feel about those in this plan? Jen, Steve, could we unmute Jen or let her unmute herself? Jen, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, there is now.
Oh, there we go. Good.
Um, as a dog owner from dog size like 12 pounds up to like 35, like I just, this isn't what this park is about. And I would hate to lose things like the active exercise space and impinge in other ways on the kid space. And we do have within walking distance for me on the Tonawanda side, like Ronan Park for some dog area. I would rather that we have a clean set of option 1 and 2 to go out and survey. That, as I understand it, the only difference between them is the sort of contemplation of how we could fit the dog park in. Is that correct?
1A and 1B, yes, but 2,
Yes,
which we
yes.
haven't talked about yet,
Right.
is completely different. Yes.
Right.
But yeah, between 1A and 1B, it's only the dog. Yes.
So I guess I would encourage you, to the extent that that's still an option, to have it as like an overlay or like a secondary question, including the comparison to the other sizes, rather than 2 separate full schemes for one.
Okay.
To have clean 1 and clean 2 and be like, the public meetings and the designers have considered the possibility of a dog park. This is what the trade-off would be. This is why we're going without a dog park. How do you feel about that? Would you do it otherwise, rather than having essentially 3 schemes where people, I think it would both confuse people who are seeing it for the first time and undermine their ability to see the like full part that 1A provides.
Mhm. Yeah.
The plaza shifting, I wanted to compliment. I think that works well at mitigating some of the unused slope space while preserving the sight lines in terms of what we're looking at to the left, which I think is to the north-ish. And I wonder if Marcos wants to talk about the vending or the Snap Chef interaction. I am glad about the preservation of possibilities there, even if we don't know the how it would look on the ground. I think that's all I want to say on rendering 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. And DT has their hand raised. Steve, could you allow them to unmute themselves too, please?
Sure, yeah, before I allow him to unmute, there was just a question from the images. It's hard to see if there are any swings. Someone wants to know if there are any swings in this proposal.
So that's a great question. And there aren't currently swings shown, but we know how important swings are. So we'd like to include, swings both for the kids as well as swings likely on the upper terrace that are all ages.
And then one more from the chat. Iris wants to know, in the Washington Street Plaza area, what are the images circled? And then after you address that, I'll unmute DT.
Are you talking about the circles that she's pointing the arrows at right now? And if so, those are trees in plan view. So what's underneath it are 2 benches. In the green would be benches on either side and then a tree pit underneath. And Iris, if that's not what you were asking, let us know in the chat for sure.
Hi, this is Donna. I actually had a question about the dog park, and I heard what the other person said, which is if it's just an option of how you view it, it's fine. I am a dog park person, and what I was wondering was, because when I heard that, well, this would be a dog park for just 30 pounds and under or something like that, I'm not really thrilled with that. So I was just wondering, would it be possible, and well, I suppose anything's possible, but if the dog park could really function for, if it were maybe set up in terms of times, like a certain time, 2-3 hour block is for small dogs, and then another time slot for bigger dogs. I don't know if that would be doable, or if the space is really so small that if you had 70-pound dogs in there, you could only, it wouldn't function. So I guess that's my question. That would never work, somebody says.
So I am, and I'll be quite honest, I am not a dog person. I don't have a dog, so it's hard for me to answer a lot of those questions. But my understanding is that that size would be too small for the larger dogs. And if we were to do something, even if it were in a larger space, I think, you could do signage to try to split that time, but it's really about enforcement and whether people actually followed the sign. But I
Yeah.
do think that with the space that we have, it would be for the smaller dogs only because of the physical size of the space.
So I'm sorry, what's the size now that you're proposing for? I think I lost it on my screen probably because I expanded the view. 1750 for the pink area?
Right. And so, and it's not that Boston Parks is trying to propose that. We're just trying to show, it was brought up as an idea at one of our first meetings of could we have a dog space? And we agree, Ronan is right down the street, but we're trying to show it as a response to the request from the community to look at it as an option.
No,
And just to
thank
sort
you.
of see what it looks like from a size perspective and what it would mean spatially and program wise to the park of what it would need to be used for instead.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't go to run, so that's not an option for me, but thank you.
Okay, thanks. Elizabeth, you have your hand raised.
Amy might. Oh, sorry about that, Elizabeth. Go ahead.
No problem. So as someone that frequents the park on a daily basis, and I can see the park from my home, a lot of the people that bring their dogs to the park do not own big dogs. And there's not ever a time where there's a bunch of dogs at the park at the same time. So I think right now what is being proposed would definitely work, especially with the usage that we have right now. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. It's good to know. Carl, you've got your hand raised too.
Hi, good night. Thanks for having me. On the Washington Street Plaza, the orange shaded area that's for exercise and teen, is that an area where you would have a little bit more of the actual like exercise equipment? So pull-up bars, dips, things like that?
That was our intent, is to have more actual physical equipment, and whether or not it's like right there in the corner or moves around a little bit in that space. We just wanted to make it clear that we knew that was important. So we wanted to make sure we had some square feet for it in the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Deb, should we check, should we jump into the second plan and then that way we can compare them as well?
Okay, so option 2 is, again, taking a lot of the things that we liked from the first design meeting. And I'll start with the bottom terrace. We have a very similar open lawn space with a walkway, stair connection, and also access for the maintenance. We had a great walk with a very dedicated maintenance staff. So that, anyway, that'll be in our thoughts as we sort of create the final plans. And then, a more centrally located playground, water play tucked within, lots of seating wedged into the slope. And then, one of the main attributes of this plan is the ramp connection from the lower plaza up to the Washington Street Plaza. So we tried the ramp in many different ways, and we, with considering how it looks, what it keeps, what it doesn't keep, very aware that people thought it kind of really took up the slope. But given the slope and the best sort of least impactful way to build a ramp into the slope is to leave enough room in between the slope or in between the two sections of ramp so that there is places to grade. So there's not huge retaining walls. I mean, there will be some retaining walls, but really to create it compact enough, but also constructible. But we think, so moving up the slope, we have some staircases and ramps. But a fun piece is that you can get partially up these ramps and then take a slide down to the playground. So we think that that could be super fun for folks and a way to really make it more accessible to greater heights. So moving up the slope, up the ramps, we have well, I should say that there's a separate sort of teen space down at the lower terrace, and then more exercise equipment sort of mid in the secondary plaza from Washington Street. That's highlighted in orange. We have ramp access and stairs up to a different arrangement of the plaza than you saw in option one. This one is less deep, but also wider across the whole site, still providing, I think, great connectivity to Snap Chef and others. We can introduce some temperative signage. We can still have the trellises. We could still do some nice, fun lawn on D type swings. So I think both options sort of really try to check off a lot of those amenities that people are looking for. But this is definitely a different arrangement of the space and a more consolidation. The larger lawn is only on the lower terrace. The water play is within the play area. And then the plaza is really, really focused up on the upper terrace. I can show you the sections, and then we can go and talk more about option two. So this, you can see the existing grade in these really fine pink lines that I hope you can see on your screens. So this plan is really exciting, and it does connect. And we won't talk about the cost differences, but it illustrates really the impact on the slope to building the ramps. And that's where a lot of the cost for the ramps comes from, is within the earthwork. But still, I think one of the great features of this upper terrace is that we've enlarged the upper terrace and also created really a view down into this lower terrace. And then this retaining wall, which there will be, it won't be this severe across the whole site, but where we cut the section is the largest, really one of the largest drops. But I think that's a great place for a potential mural or some fun painting. So trying to turn that into an opportunity as well. And then again, enlarged play opportunities for some really fun amenities and equipment down on the lower terrace. Is it premature to go to this slide, Lauren?
There is a question in the chat about the length of the ramps, Deb, that maybe you could answer.
Yeah, so this is a great, and of course some of my commands are unfortunately blocking the ramp length, so someone might have to help me out reading that top line. But you can see that the existing is 90, and then option two, if Lauren or
210.
110, and then
210.
210, and then the option three or option two,
It's 565 linear feet.
565. So it does duplicate some ramps that are also in option one. It does, that's about the length we need for maxing out the ramp, which is 1 foot and 12 feet of grade change. So to go through, I'm happy to talk about option 2 in detail, and we should do this, but I thought it was helpful for us to compare the lengths of ramp, compare the number of stairs, the playground sizes. We have increased, both options increased significantly the existing playground square footage. So we're very excited about that. There's no play area or water play area currently on the plan. Both options add water play. There's no necessarily specific teen or exercise equipment space. So both options add that space. So again, we're pretty excited about that. The plaza existing is pretty substantial. Again, that it's broken up onto the different terraces at 5,000 square feet. So we're increasing. Option 1 has 6,500 and option 2 has 6,000. Option 1 is the only option with the alternate for that small dog park. Both options again increase the seating capacity, whether that's stadium seating, benches, tables, and we can get into more detail if there's seating options people are most interested in. And then the lawn space that could be used for active, either active, I wouldn't say recreation. A family with a soccer ball would be great. Yoga, and just sort of lounging around. Both the existing green space is 4,600. Option 1 increases that, and option 2 it's less. So that's sort of the overview. I would love to take comments on option 2, and if people would prefer, I can go back. I can try to go back to that slide.
Well, and I think one of the other things, and I see Iris raised her hand, and I want to get to her question in a second too. The one thing I want people to think about too is how the park feels to you, right? And when you're on Claiborne Street or coming up Tonawanda looking at the park, right? Right now you see a grassy slope. And I know sometimes it's not mown the way everyone wants it to be or maintained the way everyone wants it to be, but you see that in those stairs. And the view up option 1A would be very similar to that, right? The view, if you look at 2, is going to be very different. The grass slope that people are used to seeing wouldn't be there. And there would be a ramping system, which has a lot of benefits from accessibility, but it does dramatically change that look and feel of the park, especially looking up Tonawanda. So I want everybody to think about that and the spatial feel of the park within those spaces as we're talking about this too. And Iris, Steve, can she unmute herself now? Okay.
Iris, go ahead, unmute.
Hi, everybody. With option 2, I feel as though the space is used more. There's the steep slope space on option 1 and the existing plan right now are just open spaces that are not used. And I could somehow see, I know we talked about the ramp costing more money, and we're not really talking about money here. But I could see more things happening on this ramp space, and I prefer this one, I think, than option 1, just because it looks like the space is more utilized. That's all.
And you're right. The slope is reallocated, right, to be a ramping system.
Yes. I mean, you have the stairs, so you can choose to walk down the stairs and whatnot. But it also allows for, if there's something happening in the amphitheater area or whatnot, you have more of a way for people to watch it and to engage in what's happening there. And I just like that one. So, okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
So I saw there was a question in the chat about no more sledding slope. So I'd love to hear people's thoughts on the loss of the slope for sledding if option 2 were the way we were to go. And like I said, there are pluses and minuses to both of these, and that's why we're trying to take seriously what the community feedback is on this. Carl, Steve, can we let him unmute?
Yep, go ahead, Carl. Carl, you've got to unmute yourself.
In the chat, he said that it's blocked still.
There we go. Thank you, guys. I do think that the slope is a bit of a huge loss. And I'm looking at the design for option 2A, which I do think is a better design. I agree with Iris that it does seem to have a lot more use of space in it. And I'm looking at the design now, and in that purple area on Claiborne, there's a kind of like a straight line that goes from the bottom of Claiborne up to the ramp. Is that a slide? And then what's that white area where the tree's at? Is that going to be green space as well? If that could be turned into a green space and some type of slope, I think that would be a really good use of that area to keep some of that green space. Because I do think the slope, even though sometimes, you know, it's not maintained as consistently and as properly as it should be, it's one of the key aspects of the park. And I think people would love to see it. I would, at least. I shouldn't speak for anyone else, but I would definitely love to see that and have that as a part of the park. Especially as someone who like runs up that slope, it's always like a great feeling to get at the top of that and turn around and see the green, but then also see the hold on one second and see. Sorry, guys.
No worries.
The views. from the
Never
top.
apologize for little ones.
Right.
Thanks, Carl. Those are great comments. So I'll try to hit all the questions that I heard. The first is, yes, we extended the lines, the purple going up the slope. I think it could be really fun to have a slide that really engaged with the ramp system. And I did, as a runner, I have thought about the folks that really want to use that hill to run. And I've also thought about the people that also run up and down. I think I counted 17 times. There was a neighbor while I was out there the other day going up and down the stairs. And so I thought, you know, I'm hoping while it's different, it's not as steep, that I mean, in option 1, you know, the slope still exists and the stairs are still in the same orientation. So I feel like that can function pretty close to what exists today. In option 2, I think there's going to be a different opportunity for exercise. I think the ramp, it's not as steep, but I think you could do some fun circuits kind of going up the ramp and the smaller runs of the stairs. But it is a change. It is a change. So that's really great feedback.
Deb, there's a question in the chat, and then I see Jen's hand raised, so I want to get to that too. The question was, could the ramp be made smaller or less imposing to preserve some more green space and possibly sledding opportunity? And so what I just wanted to chat, and Deb can answer it too. The length of the ramp, we need that length of ramp based on the elevation change. But one of the things that Deb's team did look at was if they made that ramp narrower from Claiborne to Washington Street. In other words, if they didn't have that vegetation in between each switchback and condensed it that way, because the length we have to have. But one of the reasons that they did that is they can take up some grade in those vegetated areas and try to break it up so it isn't as imposing. Whereas if it was consolidated, the walls would be higher in between each switchback. and would feel a lot more structural. I'm not sure if that's the right way to explain it, Deb.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's so it was a combination of well, trying to make it look nicer, which I think is is important. I've been really trying, not to use a lot of retaining walls. I think they, even in a ramp, they impose barriers to feeling like you could make to go up and down. And we did look at how it would work if it was all lined up on one side, and we found that it really impacted the programmability of the lower terrace and the upper terrace. And then it really, so I think the beauty, or maybe the beauty is not the right word, but kind of pushing it off to one side it kept the slope, but it didn't allow us to create program opportunities as we went down the slope, which is hard to illustrate or explain. So I felt that as a designer of creating a welcoming park, that doing in this way balanced the constructability needs to integrating it into the park. And then, yes, I mean, I agree, it's a change and the slope goes away. So that is a trade-off. I hope I answered that question. I can show you the section on the next slide. So this is a little bit what on this lower slide here about what the ramps, and maybe this is not helping the case for the plan, but the ramps sort of step down and create these green spaces in between. In certain areas, there is a large retaining wall still. We would work through that in more detailed design.
Steve, is Jen able to unmute herself?
Thank you. I want to just preface by saying that I'm only speaking for myself, of course, in terms of my reaction. The ramp reminds me of the switchback ramp at Fields Corner Station, where but that is parallel to a set of wide, broad stairs that the commuters and others can go down much more quickly. I presume the ramp is going to be made of something like concrete. Is that right?
Likely, yes.
Yeah. I really feel like that much physical massing of concrete in the park between Claiborne and Washington really impacts the ability to have a sense of tranquility there. The open space on the slope doesn't need to be functional for setting up pop-up tents and hosting a farmer's market for it to have value to me. Whether it be stuff like CJ was mentioning in terms of slope resistance exercise or the kids sledding, or just there being more green around. I think Dorchester and Mattapan generally have a lot less open green space than a lot of other areas of the city, and filling this part of it with that much concrete feels like the wrong direction for me, especially with the commuter concern someone else raised in the chat. And I know that around the block on the sidewalk isn't ideal, especially when the city doesn't take care to ensure that the sidewalks are cleared in winter times and what have you. But the city also doesn't do much better at some of the park clearing during those same storms. I would vastly prefer option one. I've said enough, and I'll give the floor to someone else.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate those thoughts, and I appreciate thinking holistically about it, because that's exactly what I was talking about in terms of some of the pluses and minuses. And I know that option 2 has a lot of pluses with accessibility, which is what we were asked to look at as an option. But I thank you for voicing those concerns, because it is something that we want to take seriously when we're looking at both of these options. So I appreciate that a lot. Dana, Steve, can we let Dana unmute as well?
Yeah, hi, good evening. Thank you, Parks Department, for doing a remodel of Mother's Rest. I've been there 7 years, and I think it's an extremely underutilized park. And I definitely think I really like the activity of exercise incorporated into this. Sorry, I missed the first half of the meeting, but it's disappointing to see that we're not really using the slope to gain more exercise activity with possibly some rock climbing walls. I know a lot of neighbors use that park to exercise. So I think the amount of free space to have like a half a soccer field, like the first phase, and the workout stations, I think that's really the ideal situation for that park.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana.
Does anybody else have any other thoughts on all of these? I know it's a lot of information. We tried to find a way to show you all of these different thoughts in a way that we hope made it a little bit easier to digest than the last time we all talked. So please let us know what else you guys are thinking on this. Like we said, tonight's not the only opportunity to let us know your thoughts. We'll take what we heard tonight, put together a survey, and try to make some tweaks based on what we heard tonight in terms of ease of understanding the questions and clarity of the plans. And we'll put that out. Everybody that has gotten, oh, we have open questions in the chat. Let's see. I will get to that in just 1 second too. If anybody is not on my email list, if you did not get an email directly from me about this meeting, please feel free to put your email address even in a direct chat to me. And then once we get the survey out, I'll make sure that you guys know about that so you can share it with your friends and neighbors. And I'll also make sure that you guys know about our 4th meeting when that gets scheduled. So let me just go make sure that I get to the questions that we didn't get to. Scrolling through those really quickly. Can the ramp be made of another surface, some other surface, as concrete is hard on runners and I presume walkers' joints? I thought walking paths were made of softer materials. Deb, do you want to talk about that from a structural perspective for ramp materials?
Yeah, I mean, there of course are different materials to build walkways on. Ramps are a little bit sort of need to be a little bit more controlled. It's something we don't build, not that bituminous is necessarily easier, asphalt is any easier on runners, but because of the access code and because of the need to have a low tolerance for mistakes, concrete is a material that can be poured in such a way to ensure greater accuracy of the slopes. If it wasn't a ramp, if it was a sloped walkway, there's a little more not leniency, but a little more flexibility in what we could use. Given 7.5% to 8% slope, concrete also stays where it's supposed to go. Things like stone dust or even pavers. We're not allowed to use pavers on a ramp. So having the ramp and having it to be steep, there's the access code really doesn't give us a lot of flexibility with using materials other than concrete. So that's sort of a long answer to no, unfortunately. I mean, we could do different things with the walls. You can tint the concrete. I don't know, Lauren, is there anything you want to add to?
Yeah, I think you hit most of the points there, Deb, for the question about the ramp. There was another question, and I also see that DT's hands raised, so I want to get to that too. There was a question about how soon the survey will be available and what's the possible time frame to begin construction. So The survey, Deb and I need to talk about because it's going to take reworking a few of these things, but I would hope that maybe by mid next week, we'll be able to get something out to everybody. Deb, you can hit me later if that's
No, I
way
think
too
that's-
soon.
I would like to get it out soon.
Okay,
while it's
good.
fresh.
So hopefully by middle of next week, we can get something out. And then in terms of possible construction, the thought is, and Deb, could we switch back to that schedule real quick? I don't know how quickly we can jump back there. There's a lot of material in this meeting.
I know. No, I knew
Okay,
that was
so,
gonna happen.
There we go. So what we're looking at right now is get that December 9th, obviously is today, doing that survey shortly after. Our next meeting is going to be this winter, which will come back to you guys with a final design concept based on what we hear tonight and from the surveys. And then we're going to be putting the documents together this winter, hoping for a spring start in construction. And then it's probably going to be about a year's worth of construction because there's quite a lot going on in the park. But hopefully it can be phased so that we can keep bits and pieces open throughout the construction. So I hope that helps answer that question. And then DT, you've got a question as well.
Before I unmute DT, let
Oh.
me read Dana's comment out loud and let you know, Lauren from Parks, you are a rock star. Thank you for leading this initiative. I second
Oh,
that.
well,
So go
thank
ahead,
you.
DT.
Hi, this is Donna. It's not really another question, but I just really was disappointed to hear that the surface of the ramp couldn't be made of a softer material. It's just really, I mean, I've been on other walkways that are just, granted, probably not as steep as Mother's Rest, where it is just a softer surface, because the whole purpose is to get people to walk and run on this area. So, I mean, that's why runners run in the street. The sidewalk is just really hard on the joints. So I just really, if you could be very thoughtful and creative in terms of making the pathway as amenable to you know, and to joints and a lot of usage, that would be great.
So just, can I ask a quick question? When you say softer material, do you mean asphalt or do you mean something like a stone dust?
You know, I don't know material, so I can't tell. I mean, the
Okay.
stone dust, I think I mean, is that sort of like bluestone or something? Just
No, it's more of like, not quite sand, but like a softer kind of material like that. Because the reason I'm asking is because the thought with the ramps is not necessarily, not that runners can't use it, but the main reason for the ramps is ADA accessibility. And we have specific materials that were required for ADA ramps. So that does limit us for materiality for that purpose.
Oh, I get it. I mean, if you have to, you're thinking of
For
wheelchairs.
wheelchairs,
Yeah.
exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
I just saw that Jen put in something about track rubber material. Would that be possible and be compliant with ADA?
To tell you the truth, I've never seen that on a ramp. I know that on slopes in playgrounds, sometimes it doesn't hold up as well over time, but it's something that we could take a look at. I've never seen it used that way on an ADA ramp.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That was just an additional comment. Yeah.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Are there any other thoughts or any other questions for us while we're here tonight? And I appreciate all the feedback that you guys have given us. This is a lot to think about tonight. Oh, Dana?
Go ahead, Dana.
Hey, I was just thinking, in Jamaica Pond, around the trail, they have those great little workout areas. So if you were to propose like a vendor for that type of equipment, it would be nice for this neighborhood that you provide a guided workout so that individuals can read. what they can do so that they could have like a quick 30-minute workout. So, you know, thinking of putting a package together of that workout so that everyone can enjoy like a nice workout without really having to think about it. I think providing some sort of fitness mentoring in this park would be really, really good for this community.
So just a question on the ones at Jamaica Pond, do you think that the signs that are there do that, or are you thinking that something in addition to the signs that are next to the equipment at Jamaica Pond? Sorry to have you jump back in.
I think it can be better. I think
Okay.
You're looking at a different community, and even for me, you know, at my age, I would like to have maybe different types of workout routines that I can do, not necessarily just one type, but I think it's important for us in this community.
Okay, that's great. It's helpful to know because I know the signs you're talking about, so it's helpful for me to know kind of the thoughts on those.
Thanks, Dana. I was looking at those just the other day. I didn't stop to use them, but I kept running.
My daughter uses them a lot.
Yeah.
So anything else while we're here, everybody? We really appreciate all of your time tonight.
Just from the chat, I know someone else answered her, but Sarah wanted to know, how is it an option not to have a ramp if we renovate the park with city money? Is access not mandatory?
So access is mandatory. And right now, the ADA code would be that the lower terrace would be renovated with ADA compliance. The upper terrace would be renovated with ADA compliance, and the stairwell will be would also be ADA compliant for stairs. So it would meet ADA compliance without putting in a full ramp.
And then another question, would aluminum ramps be possible?
Deb, have you ever seen that? I know I haven't done one in our parks, but we can always look at different materials.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have seen those, not locally and not sort of in a public park. I've seen them in sort of private development situations, and also sort of out west in some sort of bigger, more natural parks. I mean, I think it's a really interesting idea. And then you could leave the slope as it is. We want to make sure, of course, that you know, they're designed in such a way that it doesn't create any unsafe conditions. Yeah, but that's an interesting idea. Thank you for that.
I do want to be respectful of everybody's time, and I know that we're scheduled until 7:30, so I'm happy to stay on if anybody has any other questions. But I'm also happy to wrap up if everybody has already told us everything or asked any of the questions that they want to. Anyone else while we're here? I just want to say thank you again to everybody for your time tonight. I will send out an email once we have everything posted on the website and have the survey ready. So please feel free to email me to send us more thoughts on things tonight after you've had a chance to digest all of this information, and let us know what you think from our survey as well. So thank you all. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Iris. I just saw your comment that you just put in the chat. Thank you for that.